What's up, Nashville? This is Beau with the Free Speech Podcast presented by Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage. I apologize for the sound of my voice. I have some type of sickness that makes me sound awful, but the show must go on. We were off last week for fall break, so we've got a number of very interesting stories to share with you today. I am going to quickly run down the 11 short stories that we're going to cover, and then we will get into the show. Number one, you can build your 32-story tower if you give Metro what it wants. I'll tell you that story. Next, how much will our downtown Scrapyard sell for? This is arguably the most prime piece of real estate in all of Nashville. It is being auctioned. I'm going to give you an estimate on what that property is going to trade for. It is a huge number. Number three, a topic that I am interested in is AI health, right? So there's a lot of talk about AI and how it's going to change our lives. I think one of the most substantial ways it's going to change our life is through our health. And this story is about Oracle AI in Nashville. So we're going to discuss that. Number four, Jelly Roll announces plans for a downtown Nashville bar. Next, what will replace Christie Cookies in Germantown? If you know that site, I'm going to let you know what's planned for that location. Next, we're going to quickly work through the evolution of the simultaneous exchange, now commonly referred to as a 1031 exchange, a technique for avoiding taxes at the sale of a commercial property. I know that sounds dry, but I'm going to quickly walk you through where that came from and what it means today. Next, AT&T once occupied 27 floors at its signature Batman building. Now it is down to just 3, from 27 to 3. Next, True Value, the hardware chain, files for bankruptcy. I'm going to tell you that story. Next, an 8-acre event venue is coming to Nolensville Pike. It's a very interesting use, a very creative entrepreneurial use. I'm going to tell you that story. The vision to improve traffic in Nashville. This is coming from the mayor. I've got some problems with this. I think this is more spin than it is meat and potatoes. I'm going to tell you that story. And lastly, how much money you'll need to make to be a 1% earner in Nashville. How much money do you think you need to make in Nashville to call yourself a top 1% earner? It is more than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to tell you that story. So I think that's a lot of good content for you today. If you can suffer through my hideous voice, I think we've got some good stuff planned for you here. Let's get into it. You can build your 32-story tower if you give Metro what it wants. This property, located in Pytown, Vila, in partnership with New York City-based Ray, is working on a 575,000 square foot tower in the up-and-coming neighborhood of Pytown. The $211 million development, called Ray Nashville, will offer 367 residential units, lots of amenities, and ground-level retail wrapping around the block. The tower will rise at 601 Lafayette Street. Quote, "We love the Nashville market. We think the Nashville market in general is going to continue growing for a long time. More specifically, the Pytown neighborhood is a compelling opportunity that presents as really being the last inner ring, core downtown neighborhood that has yet to be fully built out. We're really excited about the next 3, 4, 5 years in Pytown look like," unquote. The Pytown neighborhood sits just east of the Gulch. Vila purchased the property, a 1-acre parking lot, for $19 million. in May of 2022. Developers don't get enough respect. Just paying $19 million for a property that you have not developed or even begun developing 2 years later. So you're covering $19 million every month before you're even making any money. It's probably going to be 4 or 5 years before that property starts generating cash flow, and you're carrying that cost for 4 or 5 years. You have to have brass balls to attempt to do anything like that. Development is such a hard business. This idea that it's glamorous and it's easy to get rich in development, you are a fool if you think that is true. There's no more difficult thing to do in all of commercial real estate than ground up development. There were two big asks from Metro: underground parking and prioritizing the pedestrian experience. They said, hey, we'll give you approval on your tower, but here's what we want. We want underground parking, which is a big ask, right? Because that is a lot of parking, right? And prioritizing the pedestrian experience. Quote, they wanted to avoid the larger parking podium that you see in some earlier buildings in downtown Nashville and really emphasize the ground floor retail as opposed to having a 5, 6, 7-story parking garage. So we've all seen those buildings that have the first 7 stories of all parking, and then you've got the actual building space above that. Well, if you need 7 stories of parking and it's all got to be underground, you've got a big project on your hands. To dig down 7 stories, that is a big ask. The project took longer than expected to break ground, citing a difficult market from a capital markets perspective. But the recent slowdown in construction of new apartments following a massive supply dump provides Villa the opportunity to open during a time when Nashville will need new homes. So we'll give you your 32-story tower. We're just going to require all the parking be underground. Very, very expensive, much more costly than podium parking as they described. But nevertheless, you've got $19 million into the deal. You've been carrying it for 2 years already. I've been there. You're just desperate to get that approval. Whatever you got to do to get that approval at that point, you're saying, let me get that permit because we got to get started. I can't carry this property forever. That's what's happening here. The Ray Nashville is going to be an awesome project in Python. Let's keep moving. How much will our downtown scrapyard sell for, right? This is a big topic in the commercial real estate business in Nashville right now. The 45-acre riverfront operation has been watched by real estate professionals and Metro officials for years due to its prime location across the Cumberland River from downtown at the center of Metro's expansive vision for a revitalized East Bank. Icon Enterprises, chaired by the famed activist, investor, and billionaire, is looking to sell the entire 45-acre site through an auction. An auction date is set for mid-November. It will include a reserve, meaning if the bidding does not reach the undisclosed minimum price, the property may not sell. The closest comparison, right? So the closest comparable sale for this site is the former Lifeway Christian Resources campus. That nearly 5-acre campus in downtown Nashville sold for a whopping $125 million to Southwest Value Partners in 2015, who is nearing completion with its transformation into Nashville Yards. Nashville Yards, a very, very big deal. So almost 10 years ago, they paid $125 million for 15 acres. This property is 3 times that size. And of course, we've got all that inflation thanks to our federal elected officials. So that was a monstrous purchase price at the time. The scrapyard, which is 3 times bigger and coming online at a very different time for Nashville, is likely to rack up much more. I'm going to call it right now. My personal prediction is the Nashville scrapyard trades for $500 million solely for the dirt. Come back and fact check me on that later. Let's keep moving. Oracle AI Health in Nashville, right? So Oracle moving its headquarters from Austin, Texas to Nashville, making a huge investment, trying to get into the healthcare community. That's really the purpose for the relocation, in addition to being in a place that people want to live, a family-friendly place, so it makes it easier to recruit, right? But AI, Oracle, and healthcare are the reasons they are here. Oracle Health is working to embed artificial intelligence into every step of the electronic health record process. And Oracle Corp's headquarters move to Nashville plays a big role in making that and improving how the healthcare system operates from that system happen. We're talking about using voice and ambient listening and AI in every step of the way. Oracle made a $1.35 billion investment to build its new headquarters on 70 acres of land the company owns on the East Bank along the Cumberland River. Nashville's $67 billion healthcare industry has been slowly working to integrate AI over the past couple years, a process that has been quicker to rise in other industries. Right now, Oracle Health is measuring how long a doctor or nurse is with a patient and is working to eliminate the amount of time they are glued to the computer, updating the patient's information. Quote, if you look at nurses in your facilities, they're 50% of the time at the terminal, which means a computer, 20% of the time looking for supplies, and only 30% of the time spent nursing. As the industry grapples with an ever-growing workforce shortage, the changes Oracle's team is hoping to make will help free up the existing workforce. So in the short term, they're trying to incorporate ambient listening, meaning you just have a microphone on in your house, right? Which many of you all do if you've got smart speakers or Alexa devices. You put each of those in every room where you're meeting with patients. They're listening to the entire conversation and automatically updating that patient's record as you speak. And the idea is you eliminate that 50% of the time that nurses are then typing all of that information into the computer. So in the short term, AI is going to free up nurses' time, which is going to solve a shortage in the nursing industry. But even beyond that, I think what we're eventually going to do is be able to take different tests, different blood samples, and have AI really study them to pinpoint the real health issues in that individual. I think AI has the potential to really replace general practitioners for general health advice, right? Anybody that's a healthy person, that's working hard to be healthy, to stay young, knows that general practitioner doctors have very little to offer you. You know, they are just really not set up to help advance your interest in being healthy. They're more set up to quickly get you in and out, get that money from the insurance company and probably write you a prescription or two, right? And the way that we overcome that place that we've gotten in the healthcare industry in this country is to really start doing diagnostic tests that we upload to AI and then AI do the work. That's how I see this playing out, in addition to, saving time from data entry. So I think the sky is the limit on AI in healthcare. Oracle agrees, and that's why they're here in the healthcare capital of the country, Nashville, Tennessee. Let's keep moving. Jelly Roll. Funny story, Jelly Roll was my neighbor, my next door neighbor. When I first moved to Nashville, we were building a house, and we needed a temporary house to rent while that house was being built. And lo and behold, Jelly Roll lived right next door. This was before he was a big deal. I didn't. This is when he was a vulgar rapper, right? A hick hop. He called himself Hick Hop, right? A white country boy rapper. The whole inside of his rental house had been painted black. I remember that. I also remember, This was in Franklin, and for whatever reason, because we were renting while we were building, these people didn't know we were building, but they were just neighbors in this area. They were all real nasty to us. Like, they looked down on us because we were renting and we weren't owners. The only exception to that rule was Jelly Roll. Jelly Roll was really cool. He was a nice guy. This was before he was the big deal, but he was the same old Jelly Roll back then, and he was a real cool dude. Everybody else in that area, not so cool, but he was cool. So that's my Jelly Roll story. Singer-songwriter Jelly Roll announced his plans on a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, also known as the best podcast in the history of man. Love Joe Rogan. I am opening my bar on Broadway in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm the first Nashville native to get a bar. Jelly Roll's Goodnight Nashville. This would be called Goodnight Nashville. Inside, there will be a back bar named Buddy's Bar in honor of his late father. Jelly Roll joins a slew of musicians attaching their names to Nashville bars. Lainey Wilson's Bell Bottoms Up opened in May at 120 3rd Avenue South in the former home of the FGL House. It joined Eric Church's 6-story venue Chiefs, Garth Brooks' Friends in Low Places Bar and Honky Tonk, and Hank Williams Jr.'s Boogie Bar. I see Hank Williams Jr. I'm thinking, who was motivated to go get a drink by Hank Williams Jr.? I don't think I could even pick him out of a lineup. Maybe I'm off on this. I wonder if the demographic is much older. It doesn't seem like that would be that big of a pull to me. Other artists have open spots outside of downtown. Earlier this year, Co Wetzel, who I've never heard of, announced plans to open a bar in Midtown. And late last year, Old Dominion announced plans to take over the former Rebar site. So we don't have a location for Goodnight Nashville or an opening date, but he did let it slip on the biggest podcast on planet Earth that Jelly Roll is getting his own bar, which I bet is dope. I'm not a bar guy, but if I were, I'd probably check out Jelly Roll's bar just to see what the scene was like. Excuse me. What will replace Christie Cookies in Germantown? Do you know this property? Nashville-based Trimark Builders is planning the redevelopment of the site with more than 50 townhomes and retail space. The townhome units will rise 3 stories. A retail building will stand at the corner of 3rd Avenue and Madison Street. The news comes as the iconic local cookie brand plans to move its operations out of Music City after more than 40 years. With a main address of 1205 3rd Avenue South, the property has been listed for sale with an asking price of a whopping $17 million. A trust affiliated with the late Nashville native Bill Taylor is the owner of the Germantown property. Get this, he paid $490,000 for the 4-parcel property in 1999. 25 years, it went from $490,000 to $17 million. Let's keep moving. Let's talk about the 1031 exchange, right? The evolution of the simultaneous exchange, more commonly referred to now as the 1031 exchange. This method of property swapping is as old as the tax code itself, offering property owners a tax deferral mechanism that has significantly evolved over time. The simultaneous exchange is directly tied to Section 1031 of the U.S. Internal Revenue Code. First enacted in 1921, the original statute allowed for the deferral of capital gains taxes on the exchange of like-kind properties, intending to assist farmers and other landowners who wanted to relocate their operations without a tax penalty. During these early days, the simultaneous exchange was quite literally simultaneous, requiring the physical swap of deeds between 2 parties. The strict requirements of these early exchanges meant that both parties had to be in agreement and ready to transfer ownership at precisely the same moment. That's very, very difficult to do in practice. Over the decades, the regulations governing Section 1031 have undergone several changes. each intended to address the practical difficulties associated with strict simultaneity. One of the most significant changes came in 1954 when the tax code was revised to allow for a more flexible definition of what constitutes a like-kind exchange, enabling a broader array of properties to qualify for this tax deferment. Really, to qualify, it just needs to be an investment property, right? It can't be your home, but any type of investment property, generally speaking, is going to qualify for a like-kind exchange. However, the real transformation in how these transactions were conducted came with the introduction of qualified intermediaries in the 1990s. This innovation allowed for what are termed as delayed exchanges, where the exchange did not have to be strictly simultaneous, but could occur within a set period of time, 180 days. This adjustment made 1031 exchanges much more accessible and practical for a greater number of investors. So now, you can sell an investment property, and as long as you first identify the replacement property within a specific time and close on that transaction within 180 days, you can still defer all those capital gains taxes. So this is what most folks do. Simultaneous exchanges do happen. More often, delayed exchanges where you're closing on that replacement property. You sell your property, you close on the replacement property within 180 days. That made it much more practical. Despite these evolutions, the simultaneous exchange remains a cornerstone option for many investors. However, because the strict timing can be a constraint, other forms of 1031 exchanges, such as a delayed and reverse exchanges, have become more popular. Reverse exchanges are you buy a replacement property before you actually sell your current property. So you can do it in reverse too. So you've got a lot more flexibility, and you still have the ability to defer those capital gains. And the trick here is, if you're someone that wants to hold on to investment real estate until death and then leave it to your heirs, right? You can continue to 1031 exchange in and out of properties until death, and then your heirs inherit it at the current market value. So all of those capital gains are actually wiped away, and you don't actually have to pay them. The only way you get out of paying those capital gains, though, is that you hold them till death and then pass them on to your heirs. Otherwise, you're just deferring those capital gains, which will have to be paid at some point in the future. But even then, you've still got all that money working for you over time, right? So if you keep that money working for you rather than having to pay it to the government, in the end, even if you pay capital gains later, usually you're better off. Today, simultaneous exchanges represent a historical link to the origins of the 1031 exchange. They embody the original spirit of the statute, facilitating continuous investment in the economy without the immediate tax burden. So there's a little history lesson on the 1031 exchange, which is one of these things that people are aware of, but unless you're actually in the nitty-gritty of the commercial real estate business, don't actually understand what's going on there. It's really not that difficult to understand, especially if you work with a qualified commercial real estate broker who can guide you. And I am that guy. So if you're interested in learning more about 1031 exchange for your personal property, you reach out to Beau. I'll help you out. Let's keep moving. AT&T once occupied 27 floors of its signature Batman building. Now they occupy just 3. AT&T cut its office space in half at its flagship tower at 333 Commerce Street, widely known as the Batman Building. The company gave up 3 floors in the building as part of a recent lease renewal for 65,000 square feet. The company was previously leasing 6 floors. AT&T's logo is a can't-miss landmark on top of the iconic building. The building, the second largest in the city, with about 650,000 square feet of space for office workers. AT&T predecessor Bell South occupied the entire 27-story building when it opened in 1994. The 333 Commerce Tower is owned by MetLife Investment Management, and get this, Nearly 300,000 square feet of office space is currently being marketed as available. That's half of the building. That doesn't necessarily mean that half the building is vacant today. I would imagine a large chunk of that is, but some of that might be occupied with those tenants having leases rolling over that they're not going to renew. So you do start marketing office space before it becomes vacant, right? You want to start marketing it as soon as you know it will become vacant so you can have a replacement tenant lined up as soon as that current tenant moves out. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's half vacant, but there is certainly half of the building coming up soon for lease if it isn't vacant already. That is a big problem to have. But MetLife got lots of money. They will either figure it out or they will sell it for a discount. We shall see. Next, True Value chain files for bankruptcy. National hardware chain True Value is the latest national chain filing for bankruptcy protection this year as retail firms face slowing sales and rising costs. Chicago-based True Value said it will sell most of its assets to Do It Best, a competing home improvement chain based in Fort Wayne, Indiana. True Value, founded in 1948, said it will continue providing products to its 4,500 independently owned stores that aren't part of the bankruptcy process. Retailers such as 99 Cents Only, Big Lots, and Route 21 have filed for bankruptcy protection this year as they wind down operations and close stores. You know, I think this is just survival of the fittest out here in the retail space. You've got a lot of retailers that are doing real well, and you've got a lot of retailers that are dying off, and there seems to be enough demand, especially for Class A, Class B locations, to backfill these spaces. But make no mistake, a lot of these retailers have struggled in the current inflationary environment, and a lot of them are going out of business, just like True Value is. An 8-acre event venue is coming to Nolensville Pike. Brentwood-based Smooka Realty is planning an 8-acre development complete with a 30,000 square foot event center, 2 outdoor venues, retail, and office space, slated to rise near the Davidson County border on Nolensville Pike. Dubbed Nashville Event Center, I'm not sure that's clever enough to be memorable, maybe that's just a working name, will offer a 2-level indoor event venue with a 12,000 square foot chapel. It's a big chapel. There will be 2 outdoor venue spaces, which are intended primarily for weddings, that will include an altar and stage with temporary seating. Project plans also call for 8 cabins for overnight housing for bridal parties and guests. That's very cool. As well as 2 more buildings, which will offer a mix of restaurant, retail, and office space. They paid a collective $715,000 for the property located at 5960 and 5966 Nolensville Pike in separate transactions in 2014 and 2015. So they've been sitting on this site for 10 years before rolling out this concept, which I think is very ambitious, very creative. You know, it'll be interesting to see how they manage it, right? So there's a lot of event venues that come up for sale because the folks that own them and operate them are just burnt out, right? Because events are happening on nights and weekends, and eventually that burns you out. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage the event venue, you know, because it's just like a restaurant. It's like you've got to be there when you don't want to be there. Nights and weekends is not the kind of business I want to be in. Certainly not a good business for anyone with children to be in. So we'll see how that goes, but the concept itself is very cool. I love the idea of the cabins. The vision to 2 more stories today, y'all. The vision to improve traffic in Nashville. This is, all right, we have a rush hour traffic issue in Nashville, right? Let's acknowledge it. It's not nearly as bad as many other cities, in my opinion. Nevertheless, we should try to improve the situation. So our elected officials have suggested a solution. Recently, on October 1st, Metro opened its first traffic management center. The new operation finally gives Nashville the equivalent of what other cities have had for years, and it provides a glimpse of the future if a majority of voters endorse the transit referendum in next month's elections. That plan, which would cost a projected $6.9 billion over 15 years to build and operate, includes funding to upgrade almost 600 intersections that have traffic light signals. They say that's 2/3 of Davidson County's total. Can you imagine? Do you think there are really only 900 traffic lights in Davidson County? That doesn't seem like it adds up to me, but what do I know? Traffic signal upgrades would involve mounting cameras for a full view of intersections and new electric equipment on the ground, including fiber optics, allowing instant connection to the traffic management center. Employees could alter signal timing and make other moves to streamline the flow of traffic, reducing time spent idling at lights. So, their genius idea is to make lights controllable from a distant traffic management center and to put cameras on these lights so a human being is staring at cameras and manually manipulating the lights. That doesn't seem to me, in the age of AI, to be the most impressive solution I've ever heard. Right? I'm not sure I'm buying this. The hub has 6 employees today with plans to hire several more. So you got 6 government employees staring at screens, manipulating traffic lights, and that's going to solve our rush hour problem. I don't buy it. And if it does improve it, I don't think it improves it by $6.9 billion worth. Currently, the Traffic Management Center monitors just 65 cameras. Another 70 cameras are on order. So now you've got 6 people monitoring 65 cameras. I just don't have any faith in the government to really solve problems. I really don't. This seems like a money grab where they want $6.9 billion to do all this welfare transit stuff, and then because people only really care about rush hour traffic, this is the little bone that they're throwing you. Maybe I'm wrong. The video is not being recorded and cannot be used for law enforcement purposes. They also say that the data collected over time, and mind you, this is useless information in my opinion. This is not worth $6.9 billion. The data collected over time will help forecast traffic flows and inform how Metro designs streets in the future. That's nice. Not $6.9 billion nice. It would lead to quicker responses when accidents or other road issues happen. Not worth $6.9 million. Lead to more current data being fed into driving apps such as Google Maps and Waze. Yank, yank. None of that is worth $6.9 million. It'll be interesting to see how Davidson County residents vote on the transit referendum. I personally think the bill is way too high for what you're getting, and most of that money is being spent on transit welfare, aka buses and affordable housing at these bus stops. So they're calling it transit, but I think it's more welfare spending. Last, let's finish this up, y'all. How much you'll need to make to be a 1% earner in Nashville. All right, come up with your guess. You'll need to make at least $602,000. You want to be in the top 1% in Nashville? $602,000 on your tax return. In Tennessee, the cutoff for being in the top 1% increased by 27% between 2020 and 2021. Just 1 year, 2020 to 2021, 27%. Since 2016, the minimum cutoff to be in the top 1% of earners in Tennessee has climbed nearly $200,000, a 50% increase. About 30,000 ranked as top tier earners in Nashville. So if you make $600,000 or more, you're one of the 30,000 folks in Tennessee that can call themselves in the top 1% of earners. Congratulations to you. Not easy to do. Well, that rounds out today's show. I appreciate you all tuning in. As always, the show is sponsored by Beechwood Commercial Real Estate Brokerage. We are experts in representing sellers of commercial real estate. If you are listening and you are interested in understanding exactly what it would look like to list and sell your commercial property in today's marketplace, it's a great time to do so. The fourth quarter is the most active quarter of the year. That bounce in transactions will be further juiced by the recent interest rate cut. And looking ahead, it looks as though the election is going to go the way that most folks want it to go. So there are a lot of positive things happening. Now is a great time to be the seller of a commercial property. If you'd like to have that conversation, please reach out to us and we'll talk to you soon. Until next week, this has been the Free Speech Podcast with Beau Beach.